everyone, my name is Deanna Querubin, and I'm a high school English teacher and athletics coach. As a person of color, I'm a proud Filipino American, and I love my community very much. And my book today actually is a book called Tucky, Joe, and Little Heart, based on a soldier from the United States that did his tour in the Philippines. So this is the book, Tucky, Joe, and Little Heart by Patricia Polacco. Right, when I was a kid, I always wanted to do this. I'm excited. Like when I would borrow books from the library and I would pretend I was a teacher and I would go like this, like the elementary school teacher would do. Okay, so this is gonna be fun. Tucky, Joe, and Little Heart. Alright. Okay. I was born in Allen, Kentucky on October 3rd, 1924. I grew up like any backcountry boy in Kentucky, tougher than last year's jerky and faster than a scared jackrabbit. I could whistle and carve just about any kind of stick faster than about any kind of stick or wood, and I could sneak up on just about anything. Came right handy for hunting. My pa taught me how to use a shotgun when I was knee-high to a grasshopper. By my 12th birthday, I was known in 3 counties for sharpshooting. I could hit the eye of a gnat from a furlong whilst I was on a dead run dodging a wild boar hog. I always took first prize over at the county fair for fancy shooting. I even caught the eye of the sweetest little gal, Frida Hall, from over Prestonburg way. I knew when I was old enough, I was going to spark her. When I was 10 or so, we heard all about the war that broke out in Europe and that feller Hitler. Then the paper said Pearl Harbor was bombed and we were at war with Japan in the Pacific. I told my mom that I was fixing to enlist in the army and go fight for my country. The only thing was I wasn't old enough to join up. Even though I had promised my heart to Frida, I had to go. So soon enough, my folks lied me older when I went to sign up. Sure enough, the army took me that very day. After my basic training, I was assigned to the 6th Infantry Company G 20th Division. Then we were deployed to the Pacific Theater on the biggest ship I ever saw. I was miserable sick the whole way. The only boat I ever seen was a river raft back home on Hominy Creek. Being the youngest recruit on that there ship, almost everyone on board was calling me that kid from Kentucky, or just the kid. At first, I didn't like them saying that, but after I got to show them how good I was with the rifle and our sergeant picked me for special training as a marksman and for heavy ordnance explosives, they all looked up to me. I later became part of a very special unit that went into the jungle to seek and destroy machine gun nests and enemy outposts. Then, the Kentucky Kid moniker became a badge of honor. I could hardly wait to land and get into the thick of the fighting. Yay! Almost as soon as we landed, we were thrown into the worst of the conflict. I had never seen so much killing and suffering. Our division was sent to so many places to fight that everything started blurring together. My outfit was known as the Sightseeing Six because we held the record for the most consecutive days of continuous combat. We fought tooth and nail, cheek to jowl. We were in Milne Bay, then Maffin Bay, then Lone Tree Hill, New Guinea, Munoz, and finally we were on our way to Luzon in the Philippines. We had been battling for 219 days straight. Luzon is actually where my family's from. By the time we got to Luzon, I was blind tired, so tuckered I could hardly put one foot in front of the other. I was plumb weary of the jungle. It was hot, steamy, stinking, and thick. And the bugs! I never seen so many bugs. There was snakes, lizards, and big spiders too. It rained every day. The ground was always damp and mushy. Our feet never got dry. To think that I wanted in on all this fighting. Now I knew there ain't no glory in war. But I was in the army and it was up to me to take a stand and fight for my country. But at night, I have dreams about my ma and her baking powder biscuits. I could even smell the pine boards in our house. I could see the green grass in our holler. Oh, how I wanted to be back home with my ma and my kin. My unit's mission on Luzon was to clear the jungle to build an airstrip and also to level the land to bivouac and pitch our tents for an outpost. So just about every day I was swinging a machete at thick underbrush and slashing vines. One day I stopped for a swig of water from my canteen. The bugs were swarming all around me. Some of them were as big as my hand. All of them were stinging me. I was being eaten alive. I was a scratching fool. I had welts all over every inch of my skin. Some of them burned and hurt like bites from fire ants back home. Then I heard rushing water. I pulled back the underbrush and saw a small native village just yonder from me at the bend in a river. I saw village women standing knee-deep in the river trying to catch fish with their bare hands. Then suddenly, I could feel someone behind me. I turned real fast and drew up my rifle. Standing there like something out of a dream was a scrawny little old girl. She wasn't any bigger than a minute and looked weak as a fawn deer. I dropped to my knees and drank her in. Somehow, looking at that innocent tiny girl gave me a peace that I hadn't felt in a long time. She reached out and touched one of my swollen bug bites on my arm. Then she bent down and plucked a plump leaf from a ground-hugging plant. She broke it in half and squeezed the goo that was oozing out of it on the bite. It was instant blessed relief. So both of us picked them leaves and put the medicine that came from them on all of my bites. Thank you, little angel, I whispered. She just blinked at me, didn't smile, didn't say nothing, just looked at me with those beautiful, haunted eyes. My name's Kentucky John, I said as I pointed to myself. She cocked her head to one side. Kentucky Johnny, I said louder. She just stared. I got something you'll like, I said as I pulled a chocolate block from my K rations. I held it out to her. I knew she wanted it real bad, but she held back till I put it in her tiny hand. Then she stuffed the whole block into her mouth. I thought she'd choke on it. She chewed hungrily at it, barely taking breaths to swallow. Then both of us just sat there for the longest time. It made me feel calm and less homesick to be there with her. Wonder what your name is, I muttered. Then I noticed a small birthmark on her arm. It was shaped just like a perfect small heart. Little Heart, I sang out. That's what I'm calling you, I whispered to her. Tucky Joe, she suddenly blurted out as she pointed at me. Tucky Joe, Tucky Joe, Tucky Joe, she sang as she turned and ran back into the jungle. I gathered up as many of them leaves as I could to take back to the camp with me. When I got back, I showed the medics them leaves and how they made the bites better. Pretty soon, them leaves were being used to heal any kind of skin scrape. I figured it wasn't a good idea to tell anyone about Little Heart, being that sometimes natives were scouts and spies for the enemy. I guess I was afeared that our captain might think that, so I kept Little Heart as my own secret. I spent most of that night whittling a hinged dancing doll for that little girl. I made lots of them back home for my kin. We call these jiggy dolls. Each arm and leg were wired at the elbow and knee so that when you shook it, the arms and legs waved like they were dancing. Then I put the body and head on a stick. I couldn't wait to see Little Heart to show her how to make it dance. The very next day, I made it my business to be in that same place where I first saw her. I waited, and sure enough, she finally came. I pulled the jiggy dancer from my pack, attached the stick, and thumped it with my fingers. Sure enough, that little doll started dancing. Little Heart couldn't take her eyes off it. Then she smiled, a smile so sweet and full of life that both of us clean forgot that a war was raging all over this island. After that, almost every single day, I meet up with Little Heart so I could share my K rations with her. After a time, I take along extra food so she could take some back to her people. She never tried to talk to me. I suspect that she didn't know English. I seen a lot of kids over here that were shell-shocked by all the fighting around them, and they just plain stopped talking, laughing, or playing. All I knew was that I needed to see that little thing as often as I could. Somehow looking at her made all of the combat make some sort of sense. I felt like I was doing all this warring for her, for kids just like her. One day when I showed up at her spot, Little Heart wasn't there. I got real scared and sick inside at the thought that she might have come to harm. So I toted my pack full of my usual load of K rations and set out for her village. When I stumbled into her village with the food, no one was there. Then Little Heart ran out of a fallen down hut and hugged my legs.